welcome once again to Sid Cordle, Christian People's Alliance. Sid, it's almost the new year, something to look forward to, some people think. Others think, oh, another year of this, we can't carry on. More of that shortly. But things have been bubbling away, actually, throughout this last year about dirty tricks and banana republics, according to Nigel Farage. And one has to say, he's not wrong. The chief executives of some of these areas now that have delayed the election for banana republic regions are actually saying, this is not right. We can get there quickly to reorganize it, to get the mayoral system going. It's just an excuse. And if they're saying it's true.
Well, yes, and also the Electoral Commission is saying it, and the Electoral Commission's not exactly conservative. I mean, it's we actually had the chief head of elections saying after the 2010 election, what on earth have they done? Don't they remember what the Tories did last time? That was from the Electoral Commission. So if the Electoral Commission is actually saying, oh, no, they shouldn't be cancelling these elections, this is anti-democratic, there's no reason why they can't go ahead. Like you say, I mean, this isn't just, just people on the right complaining. The Liberal Democrats are also saying we want to go ahead and hold the elections. And if any of these Conservative councils go along with it, it will show that they are weak. And run by the officers and not by the councillors.
Indeed.
Absolutely no reason whatsoever why they can't be done.
The other thing that's been boiling away is our relationship with Europe during the year. And it's clear to anybody with half a brain that Starmer wants us back in. He will do anything to get us back into there by stealth. And one of the stealthy ways is Erasmus. Now, I was involved in this years ago, and I know what Erasmus is like. They are the most inefficient bureaucracy, another Quango type thing that's just sucking in money and doing very little. We were involved with production on the Isle of Wight, and we were involved with Portsmouth University, and they had not the facilities that we have, so we offered our facilities. And we thought, oh, Erasmus are going to be good for us because they're going to send willing young people from abroad to work for a year or two. And that does everybody good. I never even got a reply, Sid. This is what the bureaucrats do. This is £8.7 billion of our money in the next 10 years. We don't need Erasmus. Universities are talking between themselves abroad and at home and arranging these things. But there again, it's Europe.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if people don't know, Erasmus is a youth exchange scheme. And, frankly, I mean, you quote 8.7 billion over a period of time. I mean, we're talking about over $1 billion a year that we're putting into it. And you think, well, oh, wait a minute, this is just supposed to be an exchange scheme. I mean, most people, when they're at school, I mean, I went on exchange with France and exchange with Germany, and we had a student from Germany come and live with us, and we had a student from France come and live with us, and I went over to France and I went over to Germany. And it didn't cost anything. I mean, well, except we had to pay a little bit for the travel. But, it's like, the idea that this is costing £1 billion in order to implement, I mean, it's just complete nonsense. It ought to be largely voluntary, where you're going to work for voluntary organisations, and voluntary organisations are welcoming people to come and work with them. It shouldn't be costing hardly any money at all, frankly. So the fact that it's costing £1 billion a year shows there's something seriously wrong with the scheme. And the idea that we have to be part of it, and what a triumph this is, that Keir Starmer has got us back into Erasmus. I mean, it's utter nonsense.
It is. The other thing we've got to discuss, we've had this bill, the Employment Rights Bill, hanging over us throughout the past year. the lovely Angela, and it truly is a wrecking ball for many of our industries.
Mm.
It's just knocking buildings down, literally, metaphorically, and the effect on the young people who want to get the first step on the ladder is a disaster. Nobody's going to employ young people when you put the perfect storm together, and the perfect storm being, of course, first of all, the minimum wage, then the national insurance hike, then this cruel lifting of the council tax to levels that are unthought of. And literally £100,000 extra. Many businesses in 1 year have got to pay extra council tax. I mean, it's a nonsense. Do they want any small and medium businesses left in the country, Sid?
No, I agree with you totally. I mean, our policy at the last general election was to abolish commercial rates altogether and introduce a turnover tax. So every company will pay a percentage of their turnover, which we said we set initially at 5%. And the reason for that, frankly, is that more and more people are buying online. And we're not going to stop people buying online, but you should pay the same tax if you buy online as if you buy in a shop. That's what we said. And if you have a turnover tax, that's how it would work. You pay a percentage of your turnover when you buy online, you pay a percentage of your turnover if you buy in a shop. But at the moment, the way things work, if you buy online, you pay a lot less tax. If you buy in a shop, the shopkeeper has to pay all these commercial rates. And that's not right going forward. And that is destroying shops, it's destroying shopping centres. And they're largely already destroyed, unfortunately. I mean, we should have done this years ago. It's been our policy for many years to reduce commercial rates, but we've now got to a point where we say we would eliminate them altogether. But because the Labour Party's gone completely the opposite way, we're putting them up enormously. I mean, everything that this Labour government's done has been absolutely contrary to the interests of the country. That's the reality of it. They don't know what they're doing. And they're destroying shopping centres, like you say, they're destroying small businesses. Yeah, get rid of them, I'm afraid. We just got to get rid of Labour.
Urgently, more figures released yesterday and today that we're bottom of the column again for investment by companies of all the G7 participants.
Yeah.
We're at the bottom, and I'm not surprised. What confidence has got any business, whether it be large or small, in the way this country's being run? And that leads us on to, will he be here? Will she be here? Number 10 and number 11. If they're not here, frankly, by 2027, we'll just about scrape in. If they're still in post from 2027, I think the country is truly doomed. I'm hoping they go this next year. They are not politicians. Many of them are not, but especially the big two. They can't present anything without changing their minds after 3 months. Oh, it's not working. Why wasn't this worked out before? Well, our civil servants didn't tell us. Really? You're supposed to be in charge of the civil servants. Clearly, the civil servants are in charge of you. And now we've got to put up with lots of things that who's going to take their place? Favourite at the moment, quake in your boots, is Ed Miliband for the next Chancellor, because he's had a little bit of experience, actually, darn sight more than the present incumbent. But she's got to go, Sid. And if she goes, that means Starmer goes.
Yes. Now, there's two issues here for me. One issue, which is the biggest issue, is dishonesty. And the other issue is the wrong policies. It's not just about personalities. And unless those two things are put right, whoever takes over the Labour Party is going to face exactly the same problems. Now, you see, when this Labour government came into power, they came into power on a manifesto with pledges of what they said they would do and what they said they wouldn't do. It was a matter of hours, frankly, after the election that they suddenly announced, "Oh, we've discovered a 22 billion black hole. This black hole in the nation's finances means that we can't follow our manifesto. So we pledged in our manifesto that we wouldn't put taxes up more than 9 billion maximum. All the rest of any spending we wanted will come out of existing budgets. That's what we pledged. But because of this 22 billion black hole, we can't follow that pledge. So we're going to have to take drastic action. And the first action we're going to have to take is to get rid of the winter fuel allowance." Now, that wasn't in their manifesto. Now, you see, what they expected was that the people would say, "Oh, isn't this awful? What have the Conservatives left you? What a terrible legacy the Conservatives have left you. And fancy having to be forced to cancel the pensioners' winter fuel allowance because of the terrible Tory legacy. Isn't this terrible?" I mean, they hoped that they would just blame the Conservatives, but they didn't. People said, "What? Labour are cancelling the winter fuel allowance? That wasn't in their manifesto. What on earth are they doing that for?" And they were almost instantly, they were absolutely up in arms that the Labour Party was taking this decision. And it totally backfired on them. You see, they weren't left with a 22 billion black hole. I mean, it was just a lie. Because a lot of this black hole came from money which they used to pay off people that were on strike, including the doctors and train drivers and who else was on strike. So they suddenly were given enormous pay rises as soon as Labour came into power. This was the payoff to the unions, frankly. And yes, it cost a lot of money. It wasn't a black hole that the Conservatives left them. It was a black hole that they created. And that's the reality. So they were being, from the moment they came into office, they've been dishonest, and they've been dishonest all the way through. I mean, all what they've done with immigration. I mean, we're going to stop using hotels. We're going to smash the gangs, and all these things. They never intended to smash the gangs. Oh, we've instituted a wonderful one-in, one-out scheme by agreement with the France, and this is going to stop the immigration. It was never going to stop immigration. We're going to introduce a new digital ID scheme, and this new digital ID scheme will help us to control immigration. It's total nonsense. It's never going to help you control immigration. It's just some international scheme that's being dreamt up by one world government people that we don't need and don't want. I mean, we just go on and on with the dishonesty. And you see, and then you talk about the policies. You see, I've talked in the past about the whole way in which Rachel Reeves is running the economy, but it's not just Rachel Reeves, it's also Keir Starmer, because they're planning it together. So the two of them are planning it together. And the right approach is to cut public spending, to cut quangos, basically, and then use the money to increase capital spending. Well, like you say, investment, we need investment, and to cut taxes, and that will then bring growth in the economy. That's the right approach. The actual approach from this government's been the complete opposite. Set up 28 new quangos. We're spending 88 billion more on them. And we've drastically increased taxes. And we've cut capital spending. See, all these are a recipe for recession. And it's not surprising that we've now got nil growth and we're going in totally the wrong direction. You see, and unless a new leader of the Labour Party comes in and changes policy dramatically, then we're not going to get the economic improvement that we need. And by the way, just one final thing while I'm talking like this. I do think that Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer's plan is to increase taxes more than they need to then, prior to the next election, with the idea that they're then going to announce that the economy's improved, they can cut taxes and then have a big giveaway just before the election. I think that's their plan, that they'll have pain now and then they'll have the pleasure later. But unfortunately, with this perverse plan is destroying the economy, so it's not going to work.
Interesting, Sid. We mentioned about the Employment Rights Act, and it's coming by the back door once again to haunt us. Everybody's rejoicing in the fact that certain police forces have decided not to go down the hate speech line and to really row back on that. Whether it happens, we don't know yet. But at least some common sense is coming through. But there is a clause 20 in the Employment Rights Act, which is going to devastate what's left, for instance, in the public houses in our country. Because in that Employment Act, the employer is responsible for the speech, chat, banter of people in his pub or her pub. Now, this is a way of gagging the nation again. It's back to hate speech. And this has been raised already. No answer from the powers that be. But literally, if you get somebody that's perhaps had a little bit more than they should do alcohol-wise, so we, yes, have a situation that literally, if somebody sounds off and it doesn't suit a particular party politically, or it's deemed to be hate speech, the landlord could go to a tribunal, and the cost of that is enormous, and then be found guilty of this third-party hate speech, call it. The whole thing is a nonsense, but the socialist Marxist principle is followed again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is absolutely utter nonsense. It's hardly surprising that pub landlords are up in arms. I mean, they've got this, they're severely affected by the increase in the minimum wage. They're severely affected by the increase in commercial rates. And now you've got another burden put on them that they're now supposed to be responsible for things said in the pub. I mean, it's just farcical, frankly. And it's hardly surprising that we now have a situation where, for the first time, that in as far as I know ever, Labour MPs are banned from pubs, and hairdressers have also joined in and said we're not willing to cut the hair of any member of parliament. I mean, so presumably, I don't know whether this will be universal, but we could well have a situation where we have a whole load of Labour MPs arriving with long hair because they can't get the hair cut.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's just, but this is the only way in which people can speak out and show their anger, because, you know, what they're doing is frankly terrible. And if it was just one thing, then you could say, oh, well, it's just one mistake that they've made. You know, if the only issue we had was immigrants arriving across the channel and they're not sorted that issue out, if that was the only problem, you could say, well, yeah, but they've done well on the economy, but we have still got this problem of small boats and they haven't dealt with that. But it's not. I mean, it's just everything is just a complete disaster. You know, the economy is a disaster. The small boats are a disaster. Freedom of speech and the new digital ID scheme is a complete disaster. You know, everything they're doing is a complete. The employment rights scheme, as you say, is a complete disaster. Everything is a complete disaster.
Well, the polls tell us we've never had a government like this ever, in both popularity and efficacy. It's shocking, so one has to agree. Let's go abroad, Sid. Richard Tice, #2 in reform, has come back from a visit to Gaza because he wanted to check for himself what really was going on with all these people starving, with all these people dying, etc. And he was shocked. It's purely manufactured. And in a very moving article to Conservative Woman online magazine, he goes through some facts about what really happened in October the 7th, a couple of years ago. It was far more horrendous than the mainstream media ever published. And he highlights, of course, that Hamas had made a fortune out of all the deliveries of consumables that were given freely. Hamas members had made a fortune by reselling it on. What they'd done by putting innocents in the front line and using them as military shields is unbelievable. And yet we still have a government that says, right, Palestine will recognise you. That is unforgivable, Keir Starmer. And all the, I nearly said riots, because some of them are, these wretched marches pro-Palestine. It's a pack of lies, Sid.
Yeah, I think it is a great tribute to Richard Tice that he's willing to go and do that visit and literally go to Gaza, talk to people in Gaza, go to the areas that Hamas actually invaded on the border, all the kibbutzes there, and as well as going to the Nova site where the young people were massacred, and actually see for himself and talk to people. And it's a great tribute to him that he was willing to go on that fact-finding mission. And I've got to say, well done, Richard Tice, for doing it. But what he found, of course, was frankly what we know all along, that Hamas are liars, that they've not been telling the truth, that see, one of the major things that people have got to appreciate is the fact that October the 7th, 2023 was when that massacre took place. And it was 1,200 innocent civilians. I mean, we're not talking about, military army that were killed. They didn't kill people from the Israeli army. They killed people enjoying a music festival and people in their homes in kibbutzes. Those are the people who were killed, innocent civilians, as well as 251 people carted off as hostages to then be traded for Palestinian prisoners. Successfully, it worked. Which is I also find difficult, frankly, because we always had the situation with Margaret Thatcher when at that time we were having plane hijacks, and she said, "I am not going to reward terror. There will never be any reward for terror on my watch. I don't mind what they demand. We're not giving in to it." And you see, the thing is, we have rewarded terror. We have released all these Palestinian prisoners, so they've gained by it. But all that happened on October the 7th, 2023. October the 17th, we were told that Israel had bombed Al Al Hospital. 10 days later, they bombed this hospital in retribution. How absolutely terrible. They've killed 500 people bombing in a hospital. It then turns out that actually it was an Islamic Jihad rocket that went astray and landed on the hospital, and in the car park, not on the hospital itself at all. There weren't 500 people killed. There were actually very few people killed, and it wasn't Israel's fault at all. The Jeremy Bowen, the BBC reporter who reported it, actually said, "Oh yes, I got that one wrong, but I don't regret it." What? You don't regret it? So you don't regret libeling Israel because it was Jews you were libeling. If you'd been libeling somebody else, you would have regretted it. Because it was only Jews, you don't regret it. That is the shame of the BBC and the shame of the reporting that we've had from Gaza. And that was the beginning, and it just got worse as we went along, frankly. And we've had lies for the last 2 years, to the point that Hamas are now saying there were 70,000 people killed by Israel, mostly women and children. And we know actually now the true figure is way lower than that. And at least 25,000 of the people were killed were Hamas fighters, and they weren't mostly women and children at all. The whole thing has been a whole string of lies from start to finish.
What's going on behind this, Sid? Why should they lie in the community, the world community, and support the Arab cause? What's going on?
It was the planned agenda of Hamas from the word go. They planned the attack, and then they planned the follow-up, which was just propaganda. And the hard left media, including the BBC, instead of recognising that the propaganda that was coming out of Gaza, that they had to verify it and it was nonsense, and it couldn't be verified. And instead of actually questioning it, they have this idea that, oh, it's if you question what Muslims say, then you're being Islamophobic. So you mustn't question what a Muslim says. Where actually they do not get to grips with the simple fact that in Judaism and in Christianity, we have this simple concept of you shall not bear false witness, one of the 10 commandments. And Jesus said, I am the truth. It's not the same in Islam. In the Quran, Allah is the best of deceivers. 354 is the reference, as well as this concept of taqiyya and kitman. And it's a good thing to lie to disbelievers to gain an advantage. So they don't have this concept of you must tell the truth. And for that reason, you are right to question what they say and to test what they say. But they didn't. They just swallowed it all and just repeated it all and just fell into the trap, frankly. That's what happened.
We'll stay abroad. We'll go to South America. Somebody that's gone from left to right, Javier Milei, who's president of the Malvinas, he hopes. Well, you tell me. The Falkland Islands, and of course Argentina at the present time. He's got enough problems there, shifting the socialist policy, but he seems to be doing a good job. It's prospering, so much so he's got money to spend on arms, and he wants the arms from Britain. Does he want them to defend the Falkland Islands?
Well, you see, in my view, when you're talking about islands, you've got to talk about self-determination. What do the people on the islands want? And you see, Starmer has decided to give away the Chagos Islands, which I think was a disaster. But the people on the Chagos Islands want to be part of Britain. People on the Falkland Islands want to be part of Britain. So let them make their own decisions and let them be able to decide which country they want to be aligned with. It should never be a situation where islands are invaded, and after they're invaded, then they're forced to be part of a country they don't want to be forced to be part of. And by the way, since prior to this, we've been talking about Israel, I believe this exactly the same should apply to the Golan Heights. You see, the Druze there now want to be part of Israel. And there's actually another part of South Syria, which also where there are Druze, which want to be part of Israel, want to be part of a country. Why on earth should the international community say, no, you can't be part of Israel, you've got to be part of Syria. You've got to be under an Islamic regime that hates you, that wants to kill you. You cannot be part of a democratic country that will protect you and guard you. I mean, the international community needs to wake up and to get to grips with this simple concept of self-determination. People should have a right to be the part of a country they want to be part of.
Well, there you go. We'll stay in one sense with one foot abroad, and we'll look at Trump, and indeed we'll look at the New Year's message of Ed Davey, Liberal incumbent, he hopes, to get some votes. And he starts off by saying, basically, we're going to go even greener. My goodness me. And we're not going to let Trump or anybody else from America influence us. Really? Well, let's have a look what Trump's done. It's been a good year for him, I'll tell you. And we'll only touch on it. There are many more things here. But let's think of migration, immigration, legal, but especially illegal. He stopped it. 2.5 million, 1.9 million had been given telephones and said, we'll pay for your transport back on an airplane. We'll give you £1,000. All you got to do is go into this app and sign up. Job done. That's nice. There's another 600,000 people within that 2.5 million that are in the position of going back. And it is possible, is what we're driving at, is that if you had the political will, we clearly don't have that political will, do we?
Yes, exactly. I mean, Trump has shown us it can be done. And like you say, it's much harder to stop people coming across the land border than it is to stop people in the sea. You see, all we need to do to stop these people coming over on these boats is to put the Royal Navy in the channel and basically saying no one will pass these boats. I mean, it's as simple as that. We don't have to shoot at the boats or anything. You just have to say you shall not pass. And the other thing which is very clear is that the Rwanda scheme was actually acting as a deterrent. Even the immigrants themselves have said it was acting as a deterrent. The one in, one out scheme is not acting as any deterrent whatsoever. So the Labour Party cancelling that scheme was a big mistake. But yeah, absolutely. Trump has shown that it's possible to close the border. He's had 7 months now with no one at all coming across the border illegally. And he's shown that it's possible to deport and send back illegal immigrants where you got the will. And, you know, it's believed that 5 million came in under Biden. So Trump has now got rid of 2.5 million of the 5 million. He's got rid of half of them. I mean, and before there was sort of this massive outcry from the left of, oh, it's terrible, it's terrible, these poor people. Actually, it's becoming very clear they're not poor people. They're coming over as part of a deliberate campaign to make the West more Islamic. That's what it's all about. And I think it was Kabatu, frankly, that gave the game away for me, because he was somebody who come over here from Ethiopia, and they actually tracked his path where he'd gone to Libya, and from Libya across to Italy, and from Italy he travelled over to France, and then from France he'd come over to England. A massive journey that he'd undertaken. And when he was caught in prison for raping a 14-year-old girl, he said, "I had no idea it was against the law to have sex with a 14-year-old girl in the UK." So someone obviously had told him that it was perfectly okay. But he said, "Now I know, I want to go back to Ethiopia." So he wanted to go back to Ethiopia. So he'd gone on this enormous journey. He'd come here thinking he could have free sex with children. And now he's told he can't. He wants to go back home. So he wasn't fleeing anything, was he? It obviously wasn't fleeing anything. None of them are fleeing anything. None of these people coming over here, because they have to leave their country. They've come over here given some incentives as a part of a Hajj to make the West Islamic. That's why it is perfectly possible, effectively, to stop it. None of these people should be asylum seekers, and none of these people should be given asylum.
Thinking about what you're saying in general, Sid, I was struck the other day while watching Vox Pops in the street, where the interviewer goes and gets people's individual views, politically or whatever. And I was struck that most of them were young people, and most of them is what we would consider as far left when they were asked questions. Oh, open the gates, let these poor immigrants in, etc., etc. And you think, well, they're wet behind the ears.
Yeah.
And we should feel sorry for them, basically. They have been completely and utterly brainwashed through school and university. And it's not surprising that they are utterly convinced about the left wing philosophy. We've got to get back to basics, Sid, somehow.
Well, again, you see, you've got to look at the media, because, if the media were doing the proper investigation and properly finding out why are these people coming, why are they getting into these boats and coming over from France to England, why are they setting up spurious universities with spurious courses and inviting Muslims to come over to take part in these spurious courses, which don't actually teach them what they're supposed to be teaching them, but it gives them a reason to come over here, and then they're staying in the country. Why are they doing it? And if they actually properly established, they're doing it to make the West more Islamic. That's why they're coming. If they properly established this, and this was then broadcast in the media on the BBC, put into the Guardian, and so on and so forth, then young people in schools would understand and know what was going on. And we wouldn't have this situation where people are deceived. But because they haven't bothered to do any investigation as to what's going on to find out, why they're coming over, people are just left to presume that, oh, these poor people are fleeing something.
Going back to what you mentioned 5 minutes ago about the gaslighting generally of this government, let's concentrate on Ms. Mahmood at the moment, that is the great white saviour, literally, of the whole immigration thing. Now, again, I mentioned gaslighting. There's been lots of it going on over the years, year and a half, by this government. And you rightly mentioned smash the gangs, one in, one out. Anybody could see that was nonsense. And political commentators said that day one. And now we've got, I've reached an agreement with the Democratic Republic of Congo, Angola, Namibia, and they're going to take all these wretched people back that we don't want in the United Kingdom. But let's look at the facts, Sid. Namibia has not sent over one. Not one, zero. Angola, in that period, has sent 3. Wow. And the real naughty people is the Democratic Republic of Congo, 11. And now the Democratic, easy to use that name, in Republic of Congo, have said, oh no, we're not joining the scheme. So in all this waving of flags, sometimes they do, it's usually the Palestinian ones, it's meaningless. It's shuffling again the deck chairs. It's coming to nothing. It's nonsense. And they are saying that this is a big step to stop immigration. Sid, it's window dressing, isn't it?
Totally. I mean, I've seen the same figures that you've just given, and you realise that it's we've got these countries have agreed to take back immigrants that have come over, and it's fantastic, but this country's refused, so we're cancelling all visas from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And it's all window dressing. It's all meant to, you see, the country that's really sending large numbers over is Pakistan. And if we were serious about getting to grips with sending people back, we'd have an agreement with Pakistan, and we'd be sending everyone that comes over here back from Pakistan back to that country.
Yes, let me give you a list, Sid, if I may interrupt. Afghanistan, 6,300 and odd last year. Eritrea, 6,000. Iran, 4,000. And Syria, 4,000. Now, she's not even tackling that. What utter hypocrisy.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, so she's just talking about countries which hardly anyone's coming from. So everything that Mahmoud is doing is window dressing, and she's trying to appear tough. And I was a little bit concerned, by the way, that yesterday there was a civil servant announced, yes, we are taking drastic action to reduce the use of hotels, to send people back when necessary, and by the end of this parliament we won't be using hotels at all. We are dealing with the legacy which we received from the Conservatives. And you think, okay, a civil servant is saying that. So this civil servant has totally bought into the whole Labour Party agenda and is actually speaking for them with the same sort of, trying to present the image of being tough while actually doing nothing. See, the reality is that so far under this Labour government, we're actually using hotels significantly more than we were under the Conservatives when they left. See, one thing is, again, was part of the deception. Starmer quotes the figure of 400 hotels. That was at the height of the Conservative use of hotels, but when they actually left office, it was down to 232. And the number of hotels being used now is back up to 260 odd. So Labour Party have actually increased it from what they received. And, I find it concerning that apparently a civil servant has so bought into this Labour Party dogma, while actually the reality is the opposite of what they're saying.
Sid, where's this 50,000 people been exported that the Labour Party keep mentioning? We've got sent back 50,000 people. Where? How?
The vast majority of them are voluntary returns. So they're basically people that have finished courses or whatever that had overstayed and were basically told you've overstayed, you've got to return, until they've gone back. There've been very few people that have been forcibly deported, but it should be going on automatically anyway. You know, if people have come over here on a student visa, 3-year visa, they finish their course, they're still in the country, you know, they haven't got any job, any right to remain, you know, they should be going back. And the Home Office should be keeping tabs on them. And by the way, while we're talking about this, I think it's an excellent idea that the police have now actually said that every illegal immigrant who arrives on these shores should be tagged. And absolutely right. You know, so that we can actually keep an eye on where they are and what they're doing, you know, while they're in the UK. And they should be told that if they're given residence somewhere, they have to stay in that residence at certain times. They can't just leave the residence and just disappear into the country. I mean, that's absolutely vital that that should be happening.
Another thing that people are raising is that a census in the UK is every 10 years. It's too long, especially when we've got so many illegal immigrants roving around the country, and we dare even start to count because we don't know where they are. Let's have an interim 5-year census. Is this on or not?
Well, I'm not sure that's effective either, because you see, frankly, I never got to complete the last census, which quite surprised me, really. Well, I don't know why I never completed it, but I didn't. I never got the census form. And you see, the only way it works effectively is if you send the census forms out and then you actually rigorously follow them up for any that don't come back. But obviously, an illegal immigrant isn't going to fill in the census, are they? So, you know, if they don't fill in the census and they don't get the return back, then all that happens is that we've got a census of the willing. We haven't, you know, so frankly, I see no point in it.
Time's gone, Sid. We've got to mention footy before we go, and I want your advice. And we're not just damning Manchester United, but we're using them as an example because a lot of clubs are infected. And I've got a question for you. Who is running these clubs? Is it the money that's coming from America, Saudi Arabia? Is it the local mafia? Is it the players? Or is it the manager? And as an example, the Telegraph have done a resume of the myriad of Manchester United during the last few years, management, and especially Ten Hag, who spent nearly £2 billion over his tenure, and in many cases has parted with 80 odd million pounds for a player that's a dead duck. And they've had to go the following year, and they've got nothing for the player, or relatively nothing, a few thousand. I mean, not just one player, many players. So who was really running the club then? Oh, the great white knight has come in, Ineos. He knows how to run companies. Does he? Who's running Manchester United, really? lot of people every Saturday, Tuesday night, has happened yesterday, are booing the team off. They're booing their manager, I'll tell you, because he's got one way of playing and no other, which has been proven irrevocably over the last 3 games. And people are getting fed up. But why did they get him, Sid? Who's the great controller? Is it the Glazers still from America?
I mean, I don't really know the answer to your question, but I mean, I can say that Man United are now spending a lot less money than, I mean, Chelsea and Arsenal and Man City spent a lot more money in the last transfer window than Man United did. And which is good. And also it's quite interesting that they've got a clause in the players' contracts that if they don't get into Europe or they don't get into the Champions League, then they earn less money. So although Manchester United this year is not in Europe at all, I mean, last year they were in the Europa League and got to the final, well, they were beaten by Tottenham, of course. But this year, they're not in Europe at all. And so all the players are earning less for that reason, which it actually, I guess, also makes it a less attractive club to go to. Yeah, I mean, they do pay their managers enormous amounts of money. They haven't had the managers that they brought in haven't done anything like as well as they expected, and it's been a problem. See, you do get owners that will come in, spend enormous amounts of money, thinking that they can buy success, and when it doesn't work, they just pull out. And they just announce that, oh, that's it. I'm not putting any more money into the club. I'm leaving. I'm going. And that's basically what happened to my club, to Reading. And then, the club is then left not being able to pay the wages and being in a terrible situation, deducted points, and until they find another buyer, which fortunately Reading have now. But that the same happened to Derby. The same has happened now in a terrible way to Sheffield Wednesday. Who are still in a situation where they're struggling to pay the wages of the staff and desperately trying to find a new buyer. They've now sitting on -7 on the bottom of the championship, and the club is in a terrible mess. I mean, it's unfortunately owners have got to learn that they can't just buy success. That's the reality of it, and I'm afraid that's the reality for Manchester United as well, even though they have traditionally been Britain's biggest club and have the highest income of any club from attendance, from people that go to the ground. I think it's true for any player that there's enormous amounts of money in football. And if they're not properly mature, it can go to the head. And they can end up, just massively underachieving because they've got far more money than they have the maturity to handle. I mean, I think that's the issue that can affect a lot of players that are given massive salaries when they're just 21, 22.
Yes, point taken. Well, we don't dodge these difficult issues. They're there to be talked about. And thank you again, Sid. And we'll see you early in the new year.
Okay, cheers.